Alright, so we're going to be working on a 2014 Honda Odyssey. This is a trade-in vehicle. This vehicle needs some maintenance stuff done. It's in very good shape. So we're going to do the cabin air filter, which is a CAF 1781 STP. Got this from AutoZone. Front brake pads, which is Duralast Gold DG 1521. I do like Duralast Gold a lot. The rear brake pads, DG 1281, AutoZone. And then you have two sets of rotors. The front rotors we have here are, I think they're, I'll have to figure it out once we get in there. But one set is Duralast Gold 74026 DG. And then the other set is regular Duralast, because they didn't have any more golds. They won't be able to get them for like another day or two. It's Duralast brake rotor 44606. You're going to start with removing the 22mm lugs all the way around. I'm using an electric half-inch drive Mac impact with a 20-volt 8-amp-hour battery and a 22mm socket, and that's how I'm getting the lug nuts off. And then I'll put the tires on the ground away from the vehicle. I'm using a big Mac flathead screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and pull these brake pads in. I'm going to stick this in here and try to catch the rotor somewhere and pull forward, because I feel the brake pad, or I feel the caliper pulling in. Okay, there. Try to get a little room here. See if I can get the other brake pad. Yeah, I'm able to get in front of the pad just a little bit. The front ones were making a lot of noise. I think the back ones were low, and I was just given this job and told to do it because I wasn't here whenever this was inspected. The fronts were making noise when I was pulling it in, and the back, I think, are low. I think that's what it was. That's why we're changing these. But anyhow, there we go. You got a ton of room in there now. Now what I can do is I can go ahead and start breaking the slide pin bolts loose here. I think they're a 12mm. Actually, they are 14mm. I forget, the 12s or the Hondas or something like that, right? Take this one loose, and then take the one on the bottom loose down here. Go ahead and take those two bolts out and set your caliper up here, up out of the way. Now that we got the caliper sitting up here out of the way, we can go ahead and start pulling our brake pads off of here and pins and everything, and getting ready to take the caliper bracket, which there's two bolts, one right there, one right there behind it, that need to come off. I got a 19mm on it down here. And break this other one loose here. And we'll go ahead and pull these bolts out of here. Get this caliper bracket out of here now. Clean it up. Set it out of the way. Come over to the toolbox, grab a hammer. This is a 32 ounce, so not small, not big. I like to give the rotor a few taps. And now I'm going to try to take that Phillips set screw out of there. Okay, it's not wanting to come out with a regular screwdriver, so I'm going to use an impact driver bit, and I'm going to basically, it's a tool. Let's see. Let's get it. There's a couple different ways we can do it. We can use a impact driver bit. This is a Tecton set. I've had this for years. We can use this with a hammer to get that set screw to pop loose, or we can go down here, put this on there, put it in our air hammer, take a wrench and put it on this, and an air hammer and loosen at the same time. I think I'm going to use this first. Just use hand stuff first. Basically, you can turn the collar one way or turn it the other way if you want to loosen or tighten. And when you smack the end of it with a hammer and your bit in, it drives it in and turns at the same time. I just smacked it one little small tiny time and it actually came right loose. So it was just surface tension holding it in there. Just a little tap with the hammer, came right off. Now we'll go over and I'll demonstrate on the other side how it's done if you guys want to see it. Push in just a little bit, and there it is. Came loose. Some people put them back in, some people don't put them back in. I put them back in. Now once you got the set screw loose, sometimes they'll come right off. Like that, came right off. Sometimes you have to beat this thing off. It just all depends. And get your mind out of the gutter. Not like that. Depending on the severity of how dirty it is, I take a wire wheel or something more aggressive and I clean up this whole area around the hub as much as I possibly can. I get down in here to try to get as much rust as possible. This is just a lot of surface rust. It's not like actual buildup. So this will be a quick, easy clean, and then the rotor will go right on. The Duralast Gold ones are for the front. If you notice the rotors before that were on here, there's a couple little holes here. Some of you might ask what those holes are for. Same with the AutoZone Gold ones. There's a couple holes here, and then there's the set screw hole. These holes are for if you want to drive this rotor off of here and you don't want to use a hammer and stuff. You got to find the right bolt that fits inside there, and you can start to thread it in there, and it will push up against the hub face, the flange face, and it will push that rotor off of there, and it'll help you break it free with using 2 bolts to drive the rotor out. I just don't do that. But now you see I got it mounted on here nice and even. I've got the set screw in. Now I'm ready to start putting my brake pads and caliper bracket, hardware and everything back on there. I took a wire brush on that drill to all the contact areas where the clips go. And now I'm going to pull these slide pins out of here and clean them and grease them with some Permatex brake parts lubricant, silicone ceramic extreme. Basically you just twist and pull this little rubber sleeve back and these slide pins will slide right out of here. Typically. Sometimes they're rusted up in there, you got to get a whole new bracket. Sometimes caliper assembly as well. Now we've got our bracket back on here. We're ready to go ahead and put our brake pad clips that come in the kit. I don't put any grease or anything behind these clips. I won't use any grease on anything other than the slide pins if I can help it. If it's a good quality brake pad like these Duralast Golds that meet or exceed OE, you don't need any of that stuff other than just on grease only on the slide pins. Everything else is clean, then you don't have to put anything on the pads. Alright, I got the clips in nice and flush top and bottom. I had to mess with these little butterfly tabs here in the center a little bit just to bend them forward a little bit more so they can slide down in the slot and sit all the way. Now there's 2 different pads. There's one with a squeak clip. This is a low pad clip. They start squeaking. This one here is your outboard pad. The other one's your inboard pad. Basically how I put them on there is I start them like so on an angle, and then I push in and turn at the same time. The pad goes right in. Now it's nice and flush. I'm ready to start putting my caliper bracket assembly and stuff back on, and we're good to go. So this caliper's not want to slide in there all the way. So what I'm going to do basically, I'm going to tell you and then I'm going to do it. I'm going to get this thing, see the top wants to slide in here and in there, but the bottom doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it here on this point, and I'm going to stick my screwdriver back in the back side, and I'm going to start manipulating that bottom piston, trying to pry it in a little bit to get it to seat all the way. And all I did was just stick it back here a little bit and push on the piston just a tad bit, enough to get it to slide on, push my pins in, slide on, line everything up, and good to go. Put your bolts in there, tighten everything down, put your tire on. One thing I forgot to show you is after you get your pads and stuff put on, you're going to want to take these clips at the end and stick them in the brake pads. The brake pads have enough tension to stay in their spot typically while you get these pins inserted before you put your caliper assembly over the top of it. Go ahead and pull your set screw out of the back. Then you'll go ahead and turn these upper and lower caliper bolts just like the front. You'll get them loose. Sometimes the ratchet will get stuck because of the rust buildup on the surface of the bolt head. On the bottom we'll do the same thing. Break it loose. Once I get those loose, this has got, I think, a parking brake inside. This might be one of those ones that you have to turn in. Let's get this piston off here. Let's get this caliper bracket off of here first and look at the piston. Some of these you got to turn the piston in. Some of them you can just push them in on the rear. Some of them are electronically actuated for maintenance. This one is not electronic because there's no black electric motor assembly on the back. So let's pull this piston off of here. Or let's pull this caliper off of here and then look at the piston. By the way, the bolts that hold this caliper on there, I don't know if I said it or not, 12 millimeter. Alright, so it does not look like this is a turn-in style. It looks like I can just take my screwdriver. Oh yeah. Just going right in. Pushing the piston in. No problem. Just real lightly. If I had to push real hard and it felt like that piston was stuck, I would not put anything up against the piston. I just pushed real lightly right there, and it just went right in, nice and easy. Now, I'll take a wire brush, a copper wire brush, and I'll brush all this up real good and blow it off so there's no debris on that. Now I'll work on taking my caliper bracket pads off of here. See how paper thin these are? Sometimes if the parking brake that's underneath this is too tight, you can pop this plastic plug out of here and you can turn the little star wheel that's back there and it will loosen it up and it will help this come off. But you see this thing is moving already. It's going to come right off there. So I'm going to pull this plug out of here and transfer it over to the new rotor. $17 millimeter for the caliper bracket bolts. You're going to do the same thing that you did on the front, cleaning it up and greasing stuff, all the same process. I'm just showing you how to take this part apart. You just kind of wiggled right off of there. I'll blow around inside here, spray this with some brake clean to get it nice and clean, clean up the face and put the new rotor on. With these rotors like this that are not painted, and they got a light coating of film on it, or like oil film on it, you want to spray these off with brake clean before you put them on. Alright, I got my caliper bracket mounted and I've got my new pads going on. There's a set of clips that comes in the rear pads, the Duralast Gold pads. You put your clip on your inboard pad, that goes on the inside, and the one on the outside doesn't get a clip. Come on. There we go. And now the outboard pad. You don't put the other clip in the box. The outboard pad just sits on like so. And And now you can put everything back together. So here we are. We're going to do the cabin air filter on this Toyota as well. Little push tabs you got to push in. Well, to get them to clear, and then this thing pops off, and good thing it didn't break. And then right here on the side, take this element out of here. You got to twist it. You got to kick it a little sideways. A little dirty. Dump that cabin air filter out. Let's put the new one in. This is the CAF 1781. Airflow down. Flow. It says right there on the side, down. The new one in the box. Start to put this back in here. That's snapped in. I'll go ahead and line the box back up and get this snapped back on and close it. The arm latch is right down here. So I pop the arm back on and then I just push the glove box up and there you go. Cabin air filter changed. Let's go drive it and burnish in the brakes. We want at least probably 4 or 5 real good stops from about 30, 40 mile an hour almost to a dead stop. And if you can get up to speed around 50, 60 mile an hour and come to a few decent stops, pretty hard where you go down to like, not stops, but when you get, if you can get down to like 20, 25 mile an hour, let it cool off a little bit, then do it again a couple times and really seat those pads into the rotor and get a nice surface where it can make contact. I also put just a standard set of 22 and 26 Duralast, just the conventional wiper blades, the hook type. Super easy to change. They just, the old ones, the tab flipped up right here and then you force the blade in out of the hook and just carefully put it down. Took the new one, slid it in. Same thing with the other one. If you want to take this style off, there's a release tab here in the bottom. Some of them you got to push down to release, some of them you got to pull up to release, and then you pull back. But the passenger side was a 22, driver was a 26.